Good morning, and welcome to the quarterly telecast. We've expanded the group a bit this morning to include, I think you know everybody, John, of course, Del, Carl, and Tim. And we're here to share with you the great results that I hope you've all read about, either through email or in the morning paper, wherever. We just want to start off by saying thanks very much and congratulations. It ought to really be an indication of the work that you've all been doing and the fact that it's starting to pay off and flow through. And it's flowing through the top line of orders, which is great. Let me also compliment the folks that were on the front page of the Oregonian this morning. Don and Rick and Dan and Rex, you take pretty good pictures. And the equipment certainly takes a great picture, and I think it's going to be a great product. We look forward to, and I know they look forward to great success with it. Adele, I'll have a few more words about that in a minute, but if you had walked through Don Craig's area about a week ago, you would have seen a lot of frustration, excitement, fear, all those kind of things that come with getting a product to a major trade show 1 week before the trade show starts. And that group over there did a great job. They did it, and next week it'll be a fantastic show for the whole company, but certainly for the product that was highlighted in this morning's Oregonian. What we're going to do today is have Carl give you a quick overview of the quarterly results. Del has some comments about the results and what we're doing. But before we do that, I'd like to just remind you of the objectives we put in place for ourselves about 3 years ago. We said that if we were going to hold our head high and deliver the kind of returns that we are expected to return based on the assets that our shareholders allow us to utilize, that we had to get 10% growth or thereabouts in this company, and we had to get a return on equity of about 17%. And the results for the third quarter are getting very close to those goals. The return on equity is about 14%, and the forecasts looking forward show that that will even improve and get closer to the 17% if we all do what we have in our forecast. And the growth in orders, as Carl and Del will point out, exceeds the 10% goal. The sales are 7%, but things are beginning to flow through and develop, and you all need to really, again, be congratulated. I'd like, I guess before I ask Tim to say a few words about a special recognition, we might as well get something off our chest right away, and that's the question all of us have, and what's going to happen with the Soros situation. And I know the folks in the studio here, there are probably 30 of them, and 29 of them had expected to ask that question, and they've got to think of another one, so we'll get to this early so they have some time to think. As you probably all remember, the standstill ended on Wednesday, March 15th. We've believed for some time now that the ending of that standstill would be a non-event, that it would lapse and we would continue doing what we do, and the Soros Group would continue doing whatever it is they feel they need to do. And I strongly believe that with the results that you've delivered, that we can just presume at this point in time that the Soros Group is one more large shareholder, Carl's constituent, and he will handle that constituent very well, and we're all going to go back and do our job. And again, I thank you for helping and assisting in that. It was a difficult time for a while, and we're through it. With that, let me ask Tim to make a special recognition at this point.
Thanks, Jerry. This is a carryover from the United Way dinner we had the other night. Wes Temple, who's an employee in GPID, is one of the 4 people featured in the videotape the United Way used for their campaign locally. Wes couldn't accept the award. It was about 8:45 because he commutes 2 hours to Rhododendron and 2 hours back in the morning the next day. So I wanted to give him this award. We picked it up for you, and we appreciate everything you've done, and the United Way appreciates it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wes. By the way, just for all the employees that are watching, I received a very nice letter from United Way of the general Portland area thanking all of us for the contributions we've made. We continue to be one of the top 2 leading contributors as a company on almost every indicator there is to the United Way. So again, thanks.
We're actually the largest private company. The federal government noses us out, which I think is a little unfair. Every postal worker and IRS agent.
Well, it says we've paid for most of those guys anyway.
Okay, guys, we got to get through some data here so these pent-up questions can come out. Let me ask Carl to sort of editorialize around the details that came to you in the email and the earnings release and everything else. He's got a few comments about it. Carl?
Just about the results themselves, or just kind of go through what the reactions were?
The results.
Okay.
Hey, you got 5 minutes. Do whatever you want.
It's fairly simple. There's good news really that came in from the field this time, and boy, if there's anything that all of us have recognized is that if we don't get the top line to grow, it's a tough road to hoe. And so in this quarter, we're able to grow revenues almost 7% to $333 million. The Oregonian forgot about international orders and only picked up U.S. orders, and I think reported about $176 million for the quarter. There's another 155 or 6 in international. But that's one of the first times that we've actually grown revenue year over year from a quarter in some period of time. Orders grew more than that. They were up 15%, and backlog is showing a nice growth as well. That's up some 9%. So that's really excellent news. And when you look around the world, particularly on the order front, you see good news in Europe, which has been down, and good news in Japan and AMPAC, and so it's a fairly balanced look, and in all businesses as well, which is a positive. As a result of that, and a lot of good continued expense control on the part of people, the bottom line showed a nice improvement as well. Operating income was up about 30% to $23 million, and net income was up some 70% to $15 million. We're able to cash in and the strong stock market with the offerings of both Triquint and Planar as well, and use that cash to help reinvest in our own business as well. So from a P&L perspective, there's no question it was an excellent quarter. And we look at the balance sheet as well. We're in very strong shape there. And so I think we're in good position to move forward. To you and I and out there, it was also good news from a results share point of view. Results share grew by about 50% to 3.34% of salary. Last quarter was a little over 2%. So I think the payback that we'll all see is a little bit of payback for the fruits of a lot of work that's been done and a lot of work that's yet to be done on improving the results. So I know that I'm pleased, and I think everyone else up here is very, very pleased with the results, and you certainly should be as well. It only came as a result of a lot of collective hard work on everyone's part.
Okay, good. There might be questions for Carl in a minute, but let's. Dal, I know you have a lot of things you'd like to say about what's been happening. Why don't you?
We always have a lot of good. When there's good news, there's always a lot you can talk about, and trying to get it compressed is always a challenge for me. But just to add my congratulations on just a great quarter in both orders and revenue. And as Carl indicated, orders were up 15% when compared to last year, the same quarter. In fact, it was our first major growth in over 2 years. So we have a lot to be proud of there. U.S. was up 9%, Pacific 14%. Europe is improving, although they were down 9%, they're improving. And in fact, GPID had an order growth of 16%. The backlog has increased 33% since the beginning of FY94. And TV and telecom and test and measurement grew 9%. And that's a major accomplishment for us, especially in test and measurement, because many of you might have read that HP grew 7% in their first quarter, which is sort of aligned to our third quarter. Well, we grew 9%. We have a lot of operational improvements and operational excellence in the quarter that we can be proud of also. many examples throughout the company, but I want to just take a few of them. NWD, for the last several quarters, has been trying to break even, and in fact, in Q3, did more than that. They not only broke even, but were above break even, and not only for the quarter, but for the entire year. So our hats are off to NWD. We had a lot of ISO certifications throughout the company, so they're proceeding extremely well. We had success in our materials initiatives, in parts supplier reduction, in material cost reduction. In fact, we met our goal for the entire year in the third quarter. Product phase-outs are continuing aggressively. And we've had a lot of employee involvement. The innovative partnership that we talked about in our last telecast has proceeded extremely well, and a lot of ideas are coming to us, and a lot are being implemented. Now, you know, we've done an awful lot in FY94 on product generation and demand creation, but we still have a lot to do in demand fulfillment and service and support. So as we are all working on our FY95 business plans, I think you need to be thinking about ways to doing work quicker, get the time to market faster, look at cycle time reduction and process improvements. That's going to be our major focus in FY95. We also have a lot of new products, and it's always exciting to talk about new products. In fact, 25% of our second half revenue will come from new products that we have introduced since September. That's a major accomplishment for all of us. In telecom, we have new transmission test products. In T&M, tech tools and digital design products. GPID, 3 new printers, has replaced 75% of their line. In NWD, new software releases that provide true multimedia in X terminals. And for the television division and the Grass Valley Group, over 20 new product announcements will happen next week in Las Vegas at the National Association of Broadcasters show. Last week, we talked to Dan Castles and Austin Basso of the television division and Bob Natwick from the Grass Valley Group to get their thoughts on this year's NAB. And here's what they had to say.
Wherever you look in Building 58 or in Grass Valley, you'll see lots of activity, all in preparation for the March 21st opening of NAB. We're all very excited about NAB because we're introducing a record number of new products, and many of these new products are getting us into brand new markets. By leveraging our core competencies and working with people throughout the company, we've been able to put our best foot forward and really show our commitment to meeting these emerging market opportunities. If you step back and look at some of our strengths in video production and distribution, computer graphics, signal testing, and more, we're well positioned to get into exciting, growing market opportunities. This will be a great NAB for all of us. It's a big deal because, first of all, everyone in the world comes to it, so it's not a regional show. So it's a worldwide show. All the broadcasters, all the post-production people, anybody involved with using video as a medium are there. So it's a chance to make a very strong statement. It's a chance to get excellent customer feedback. What you get is the entire world coming at you. So it's heavily attended. It's the event of the industry of the year.
Well, this is my 27th NAB, and I think it's going to be the most exciting NAB in history. 500 people have been working from 4 years to 18 months on a whole bevy of new products, and our timing is good because they're all coming to fruition in the month of March 1994. And so almost everything in our booth will be brand new. Never before have we taken 20 plus products with such great significance in terms of potential immediate incremental increase in business. And for me, that's super exciting. We're fully staffed with a great crew of very positive professional salespeople. We're going into some markets we're not in today, and I think we'll own them in 18 months. And that's what our goals are, and that's why I'm excited.
We're also introducing Profile, our disc recorder, which is an operational product. And this NAB is our stepping out party, if you will, for the television division to go from being a dominating test and measurement supplier to still a dominating test and measurement supplier, but also a key player in the operational side where there's high growth, high risk, high potential.
This will be the biggest headline creator at NAB. There will be other companies that take disc recorders to NAB, but for Tektronix to make this type of move is extremely significant. Not only do we carry to the marketplace a proven track record of quality and high performance, but the thing we're going to be touting the most is picture quality with our box.
That's going to change how Tektronix is viewed in the television marketplace. So that's real exciting. From the Grass Valley Group perspective, they've gone through, the years I mentioned earlier of catch-up, and they're going to be, I think, showing a real good positive statement of all the bread and butter products in the digital composite, digital component environment.
Well, what we've seen in the creative side of the product lines, in the digital effects areas, in the editing, and in the character generator side, graphics side of the business, we're starting to see a convergence towards standard computer platforms. And in fact, the Sabre editor, which we have shown previously on its own computer platform, is going to be shown this year with a Silicon Graphics Indy platform. So we've ported all of that software over to a standard platform, and that's a good example of the convergence of the computer industry and the video industry. Another good example is the Type Deco character generator, which incorporates much of the software capabilities of our high-end character generators, and that's ported to a standard PC platform operating under Windows NT, which is particularly exciting because now we have a product that will serve the international marketplace because Windows NT comes with the multi-language capabilities. This year we're introducing a new DVE called Crystal. It's a breakthrough in terms of video quality, and it's a breakthrough in terms of operator ease and operational capabilities. And this is the year I think we will emerge as the industry leader in our core business. And we can go on from there and leverage that to grow dramatically in other areas in the future.
People take this job very seriously. The people involved know the importance. So it's a real big deal. So the mood is excited, the mood is positive, but it's stressful. That's okay.
Well, that's a great story, and this is clearly next week's the week in the sun for all those in the television business. But we can't forget, in this last quarter, the third quarter, GPID introduced a whole set of new products, turning over 75-80% of their product line, and did a very successful crossover of that. One of these broadcasts, we're going to have to bring the network displays guys in and gals in and show some of the really exciting work going on there. Dave Pinkard's area, Dave Brown, have got some great stuff going, and then we know from I think what we've seen in the press that the Tech Tools was announced this quarter, and a lot of things coming out of T&M. So it's all over the company. It's not just what you saw on the tape today, but as I said, this is their week and their month in the sun with that big trade show. I guess literally in the sun in Las Vegas.
That's right.
The last point I'd make before we go and take your questions is that a company that in 1990 was 2 weeks from not having enough cash to make payroll to one that has got a lot of cash, a lot of things to do with it, enough cash to buy back shares and get the total shares down below 30 million for the first time in a long, long time is a remarkable piece of work by all of you. And again, I say that because I also want to compliment the people that assisted John Corrales in doing a lot of things, in negotiating license agreements and a whole series of other things to bring that cash in. So we're in a much more flexible position to do things now than we, as you would recall, we were 3 years ago. With that, let's turn the meeting over to your questions and start in the studio. And those of you out in the other buildings can begin to call in. Do we have any questions in the studio? Barbara? Barbara's probably got a question on facilities because we took her out of building 39, her and her group, and put her in the basement. She now has to wear a hard hat to work, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that is true. But actually, my question that I'm going to use is, with reference to 3 years ago, we started a program to get our salaries in line with other companies in the area. And the first year of that, I think it went pretty well in terms of it fulfilled our expectations, and we we saw some difference. Last year, it went pretty lousy. What's it going to do this year? So you just said you had money.
Somebody had cash.
Darn.
Tim's got all the answers to it.
Yeah, we're actually going to move a couple percentage points more than the market this year to get caught up. So I think the market's going to move 4.5, and we're going to move closer to 6.5 in total. And some of the, there's 5 job categories, and they're moving at different rates. It gets us to market in 2 of the 5 and real close in the other 3. So hopefully we can close the gap in the other 3 by next year.
Do we have timelines for when that's going to happen this year? Do we know that?
Yeah, it'll be the normal process. The reviews will be done over the summer, and the pay changes will be in early September. So same process we use every year. But you're right, we did slow down a bit last year, and we think we'll get caught up this year.
Just so you know, we don't forget those commitments. We reviewed it with the board this week as well, so they know exactly where we are in the program. We have a call from Building 58.
Yes, hello. The question from Building 58 is, there are rumors of significant price increases on circuit boards due to the divestiture of the Forest Grove operation. This will negatively impact cost of sales. What are the counterbalancing cost benefits?
Well, first of all, maybe you've heard something we haven't heard, but let's at least talk to what we know about the printed circuit board purchase agreement. John, did you want you or Carl?
I just say, first of all, whatever our ultimate plans with respect to Forest Grove, we do not anticipate that it'll negatively impact the rest of Tektronix. In fact, it'll be, again, we are under some confidentiality constraints as to what we can say we will be ultimately doing with respect to Forest Grove. That'll become clearer in the next month or 2. But in any event, we do not anticipate any negative impact to Tektronix overall. I mean, if we did, we wouldn't do what we're going to do.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with what John said. 1, in a totality, and 2, just measuring it as the shareholder does in earnings per share. No impact. May have some impact in some of the line items on the P&L, but on the bottom line, none. So.
We have a question for Building 78.
Is there any validity to the 1,000-person layoff rumor that is going around?
Where do you all get these rumors? I mean, why don't you talk to them?
That's round number.
Well, certainly, as we get into our FY95 plan, as we talk at operational staff meetings, we want to get completely away from talking about headcount reductions and talk about expense reduction, process improvement, cycle time reduction, getting to do our job faster. Do we have to do everything inside? A leveraged business model where we're beginning to utilize other companies as well as our own selves. So we as an operational team want to get away from having to talk about layoffs. And certainly we're not talking about that in FY95. We are still under expense pressure, so we still have to bring down operating expenses throughout the company. But to my knowledge, there's nothing about that rumor that I know about.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that at all is that, I tossed around some numbers at times, and I'm not sure in the context in which people hear them. We had, at the end of this last quarter, we had 8,999 people, just under 9,000. Now, in the operations that we've talked about as being discontinued, the ICO, HCO, that with Maxim and all the rest of it, those activities we've been talking about now for about 9 years or 9 months now, there's about 1,400 people that work in those operations. And so at the end of the day, when those operations have been moved, sold, et cetera, as opposed to 9,000, we're going to have 7,600. And all I can think of is that somehow or other people are thinking of those numbers, but those people are just moving outside the company, working with a Maxim or whatever, and just no longer under Tektronix umbrella, and that's the confusion that I can say. But by the same token, I agree with Del, is we're not, this is a great quarter, and it's a lot of good things have resulted from a lot of hard work, but we're not done, okay? And so there's going to continue to be, a lot of focus and effort on not only driving the top line, but driving the bottom line in there.
We have a call from Building 94.
Yes. Can you share the latest plans for Walker Road? For instance, who's moving to Building 92? And is 94 going to be a corporate furniture warehouse? Additionally, how long will 94 be occupied by tech personnel?
Let me try to answer that. Walker Road is not in the cornerstone of the future of our buildings. We put together a Beaverton consolidation strategy, which Barbara Block and her people are working on. And at the end of the day, we will be out of Walker Road. We're trying to sell Walker Road just as we're trying to sell Vancouver and a whole bunch of other sites as well. But we do not intend to be in that building in the long term. In fact, I would expect to be out of it by the end of this calendar year period.
Mike?
My question is also about the consolidation and renovation process currently underway in Beaverton. I'm afraid that worker productivity in the reduced workspace will actually be decreased because people may not have enough space for all the tools they need in their own individual work areas. And I'm wondering which has higher priority, the consolidation or maintaining workspace efficiency?
Well, I think we're going to accomplish both in this, and I think just within this last week or so, some people that are part of the employee teams have gone and visited HP, and I want to say Boeing, I'm not sure on that. And what they've also seen out of that is, one, even in what we have been talking about as space, there's more room than most people enjoy today, more effective workspace. And we're not going to be, 100% cookie cutterish. But we've also erred on the other side in the past of moving things around constantly. And those moves cost about $1,000 every time we do one of those things. And we're trying to solidify into what we have and to be better working conditions than I see almost anywhere around this company today. The end result, I think, is going to be extremely positive. We've gotten great cooperation from the engineering community and all those people in Building 39, as well as the other buildings that we're now looking at and getting our plans together. So I think people will be positively impressed with the results. People are going to be involved in those decisions, and I think that they'll find that the ultimate workspace, one, will be flexible enough, and two, will provide more than what they have today.
So there will be no net reduction in workspace per person?
Oh, no. Yes, there will be. Okay, on average, we're looking at about 225 square feet per person in the office type of areas. But we have to get to that. The rest of the world is getting to that as well, and that's not a negative. The question is how effective that workspace is for people.
I think you asked a very binary question, and Carl certainly answered it. But clearly, employees having the tools to do their job is what's got to be done against some standards. But the standards are not in concrete. We look at each case, but we also aren't going to have time to have a court to have 7,900 people all negotiate space.
Right.
So, we had another question in the studio. Chuck.
One other thing, we've heard a lot of new products this several quarters and last years or so. What other things is management doing to promote growth within the company?
You want to comment?
Well, we actually have quite a few things going on. My whole, and you've heard this from me in previous telecasts and in Tech Week and such, my whole vision is that we go beyond our own four walls and have a leveraged business model so that a lot of folks, a lot of companies will be in partnership with us. I mean, we may only have 9,000 people inside Tektronix, but I'd like 40,000 or so working for Tektronix solutions so that a lot of companies are winning together in partnership. As an example, in test and measurement, we have Adventest and Rohde & Schwartz that we're currently distributing product in the United States. They're distributing some of our product in the Eastern Bloc countries. And they're in television. We have several companies that we are also in distribution agreements with. But we're moving even beyond that to begin to co-develop some products, utilizing core competencies and expertise wherever it may lie. So we've got to get out of this mode that we have or can do everything ourselves. Now, it goes beyond just product development. It goes beyond distribution. We've got to do much more in the demand fulfillment process, in leveraging manufacturing as an example. Perhaps sub-assemblies of many of our products coming from others, and we do some final assembly. We've got to do it in logistics. We're also beginning to look at other supplies and areas where we can have partnerships outside with external vendors and suppliers so that we don't have to do everything ourselves. And we think all of that contributes to growth, because if you've got 40,000 folks or 10 or 20 different companies working on Tektronix solutions, it's more than you can do. There's a leveraged business model, more than you can do in-house.
Yeah, let me add to that as well, because I think there's some other things, is that we're moving resources to those areas in the world that are growing as well. So look at John Vold's organization. You see expansion on the number of people. We now have an office in Singapore and other areas like this to capture some of the growth that's there, where it may have slowed down in some of the more mature economies, but if you look at the ASEAN countries, a lot of growth there, and we've consistently had that. And so we're increasing our presence there as well from a distribution sense, which I think is also key.
We should probably also take a moment, because we have Brian here from Australia, and just let Brian talk a couple of minutes about Australia and what he's doing to help growth in Australia.
Thanks for the warning, Del. Really appreciate that.
It's easier to get Brian to comment than take his questions, believe me.
I knew there'd be a good reason to have me here, but I do appreciate being here, and I'll answer that question the best way I can. Primarily, I see the role not in Australia, but in all those countries, is really matching the distribution channels up to the customers cost effectively. To do that, it means you really have to look at your existing resources, your existing sales force. You have to take into consideration the changing mix of customers, where we've had defense and the computer industry is very major customers. We're now seeing a really rapid expansion of smaller customers that still want our baseline and high-end products. How do you get to them? You don't necessarily have continuous business. Somebody that buys a TDS 3XX is not a low-end product. It's probably the best damn product he's ever bought in his life, and we've got to realize that. We are changing our mix a fair degree to more emphasis on marketing rather than just direct sales, and that's not just the distribution channel, it's the positioning. It's working as an integral part of the IBDs in the geographies. Facilities. We're down to 250 square feet in Melbourne, and I might say that ergonomically, and we have the same concerns. Can we take this premises we've been in, this location, and work effectively? The answer is yes. But it needs to be done with a lot of thought and a lot of working with the employees. But the types of equipment that's available today in furniture with high stacking and positioning, it can be done, because we had a concern. It can even be done for service people who need something a bit more than the 200 square feet, with the right thought. We're probably looking at selling our head office premises in Sydney next year in the first quarter. We're looking at alliances with Roden Swartz. We're looking at hopefully some offshore development into Australia, maybe in the external business perhaps. And if we can get freed up, I can give you another dozen ideas where I think Australia could happen as well. So really, I guess, Del, it's emulating everything that's going on here, but with a strong emphasis on the customer focus and the marketing and the distribution channels. I hope that's a reasonable answer.
It does. I think that you touched on marketing, which certainly we have just begun to really explore in a much broader pace and coverage than we have ever done before. We've done an awful lot, and we're known an awful lot for product and technology, but we've got to get the message out that Tektronix is a global company with a lot of solutions, working with a lot of customers, answering a lot of customer needs. And so Shelley Potter and her people in corporate PR are going to help us get a lot of general press coverage, like you saw today in the Oregonian this morning, and hopefully in the Business Journal, when we see that this afternoon, we'll begin to get more coverage even beyond Oregon, right? We need some press tours, and to that extent, Jerry, I think you might talk about some of the things that we're doing to try to get that global coverage, because that's going to help us grow too. Back to your growth question.
Yeah, well, obviously we're doing a lot, and we have an anxious caller in Building 50, but Chuck's question here on growth is the question for this company, and we could take the last 25 minutes that we have and talk to it, and maybe we ought to devote a telecast to the issue of growth sometime and take it apart and pick it apart. But I'd say first of all that we ought to congratulate Brian and his folks in Australia. They are the tip of the sword on a lot of telecommunication work going on down there, and so we look for a global place like that where we can get some new telecommunication ideas, and Brian and his folks have done a great job. But maybe, Chuck, what if I could belabor the question of growth a minute. The first thing we had to do and are doing in this company is focus this company on some markets out there, long-term markets that have got growth in them. Clearly the printer market is a $20 billion market and growing. T&M market is evolving, and we said that the tools part of that is growing. The television market and the telecommunication market is evolving with this multimedia video thing, and we're focusing on that. So we focus. The next thing we ask ourselves is, we focus on products because that's what we sell. So what kind of products do we take to those markets, and where do we get them? We do some ourselves. We get some from our partners. We'd like to acquire some companies that would give us strength. So if you know of any really good deals out there, I just commented that we're in a pretty good cash position, and the banks love us all of a sudden. So we have to fill out with products. And then, in parallel, we've got to develop channels. Finally, those channels and those products don't do us a bit of good if we don't work on cost, because price out there is going to be a thing we have to compete with. And we've got to begin attacking our gross margins. Our gross margins are coming down a bit for logical reasons, and we're doing all the right things, but we will never be able to take the pressure off gross margins. So I think we ought to devote some good old-fashioned town hall to this subject of growth in the future and really get at it. Building 50, are you still with us? You have a question there?
Yes. On Monday, 680,000 shares of tech stock changed hands. Can you speak to that? Is Tektronix buying stock back?
I'll let Carl speak to that, but I will tell you that we have some really good news and some really bad news on the price of the stock. I think the stock is up above $29, and that is good, and apparently it continues to go north. The bad news is we'd like to buy it back at $24, but it's kind of a nice problem to have.
Yeah, about a year ago, the board approved a stock buyback program in which the company could buy back 2 million shares. We hadn't really been terribly active on that for the first part of FY94, but during this last quarter, we bought back a significant number of shares, and as a result, dropped the total share count from about 30.6 million to 29.9 million shares during the course of the quarter. I think the investment community looked at that as a statement of our confidence in the company and its direction and its future as well. And it obviously helps in improving earnings per share as well.
We have another call. It's Building 78, I think, has a question.
Question for Tim Thorstenson. Relative to an article in Tech Week, you mentioned a key challenge for 94 was to kick off a benefits redesign project. Can you give us a little background on this?
Right. 2 years ago, when we started redesigning our comp and benefits program, we decided to first focus on the compensation program, and we have had the same benefits program in place for a number of years, and what we'd like to do is run some employee focus groups and relook that, see how competitive the program is today, see what changes we need to make over the next couple of years, and move forward. But we will be running some employee focus groups in April to get ideas on changes we might want to make to the benefits program. I think there's some areas where we're overly competitive today and some areas where we're not competitive at all, so we probably need to consider making some adjustments moving forward. The current program's not very contemporary compared to other companies we compete with, so we are looking at making some changes there.
I have a question for Del on sales, product sales. Are you aware of the application support program that we put together? This was a very successful program put together last year by John Hengeveld. And what happens is engineers who actually develop products go out to the field and actually talk people into applications and buying. And we've been going out for a year, and every time I went out, we would sell a bunch of equipment. It's a very successful program in my view. What we also get back is ideas for what they need. Like yesterday I was in Phoenix at Motorola, and we got a fantastic idea for a new product. it is the type of thing that I think would benefit us company-wide. So I wonder if there is a possibility to maybe extend it a little bit.
I am aware of that program, and you're absolutely right. It's the kind of customer involvement that no rhetoric can take away from. And each of the IBDs have different sort of programs going, not necessarily exactly like that, but that would be a good one to replicate in other parts. So I'll take that back and we'll talk about that at the ops staff meeting. It's a good idea, Bull.
Last night or yesterday afternoon, we heard from Bruce Murdoch, who is, I think you all know, is senior manager over in the labs, and he'd come back from Washington with a $2 million check. Bo came back with an order. Maybe life isn't as complicated as we're making it. Maybe you just go out there and pick up orders and money, and then that's all we have to do. We have, I think, a question from Building 59.
Yes. My question is, will there be any resource help made available for tech employees who wish to remain so? In the past, tech has offered this help to laid-off employees. What about the sold ones?
Could you repeat the question?
We didn't catch the early front part of your question.
Yes, I'd like to know if there's going to be any resources made available to tech employees who might be close to retirement. They wish to stay with tech and retire from tech, and they're in the midst of being sold. Is there going to be any help for those people so they may try to seek employment within tech?
Yeah, I think that certainly they have the opportunity to apply and be redeployed into tech units. It's difficult because obviously when somebody's buying one of our organizations, one of the things they're buying are the assets, and a big part of the assets is the people. But there is an opportunity to apply for jobs at tech and move into tech organizations through the normal process. Other than that, there's no formal program because, again, when we're selling these businesses, part of the asset is the people working there.
We had a studio question. Yeah, John.
In the Pacific Rim, do you envision a distribution center in the Pacific Rim like we have set up in the European community?
No.
Well, we're basically moving forward on the European Logistics Center, and we're really looking at configuration centers. And I would anticipate at some point in the future we would have one of those in the Pacific, but we're using Europe as the guinea pig initially, and so we'll see how we do over FY94 and FY95 in implementing the Logistics Center and Configuration Center. And then I would think as the Pacific continues to grow, I mean, they are a phenomenal success story for us right now, the Pacific, that certainly something like that could be warranted.
I think if you look at the opportunity, you look at China and you see the work that John Wold's organization has done there so far, and it's excellent work. But China is a huge market in the decade of the 90s, and we know that we have to focus a little attention and make some investment, I think, to be a big player in that market. And I'm not sure that what you asked is the way we'll do it by having a distribution center or whatnot, but we do know that there's a market there that we cannot afford to miss.
Just as a follow-up, I mean, we are always trying to balance resources and investment opportunities, and it's so difficult for us because with the Pacific growing substantially, we would like to put more investment dollars there to compound that growth. But we're a global company, and we have to monitor, all of those investment dollars and make sure that we're getting the payback, the quick payback and return on the investment. I wish we have more dollars to put into the Pacific, but we'll just have to give as much as we can as we grow that business.
A call from Building 58.
Thank you. This question from Building 58 is, we have been told that next week we will have a layoff, including people here in Building 58. It may be called a dollar reduction, but can you translate that dollar amount into the number of employees which will be laid off?
What dollar amount?
He says it could be called a dollar amount.
I just don't know any of the particulars. I mean, to be fair, as we have looked at, we've announced 800 people early in the year that we were going to have to reduce. Some organizations may not be through that yet, and that may be some of what you're hearing. I don't have the specifics on that, but I would think the most of what we announced early on is behind us, but there still may be some cleanup in some of the organizations.
There is. Okay, so there will still be actions taken over time, but nowhere near the significance of what we've seen in the last number of years.
Do we have a question? Yeah, Uli.
Since the second quarter of this year, we've been representing Rohde & Schwarz and Avantest in North America. What work has gone on to extend those contracts to be so we could represent them worldwide?
Well, I believe, and Brian helped me out here, I think we have also now approved Canada, and that has been extended Rohde & Schwarz. Now, I'm not sure about Avantest into Canada. And I know that John Vold has negotiations and discussions underway for other parts of the Pacific world that he is over. So that is continuing. I think just as important is the co-product development that we're also beginning to do with those companies.
I think the point, I'm not sure it's the point you're making, but we must have a global product coming from the combination of Advantest, Rohde & Schwarz, and Tech. I mean, and when we went into these relationships, that was the objective. We have thoughts of how we get there. Certainly adding these countries one at a time is a progressive step, but I just want to assure you and really the ones that need the assurance is our distribution force in Europe and other places that objective has not gone away. Any a question from the studio? Yeah, Ann?
Dale, in one of your early sessions you mentioned that you thought software was the place to be. I just wanted you to comment and bring us up to date on that.
Well, I still believe the same. It's, I think a lot of it has had to be a learning process by myself. I have an awful lot of software in our products. I think that I focused so much on a software IBD when I first got here that over the time I've realized just how much software that we have incorporated in all of our products within each of the IBDs. I think the focus more and more in the future will be software oriented, as well as standard platforms, as well as adding our added value, as you heard Dan Castles talk about in the earlier clip. In the products that we'll be introducing at NAB, there's significant software, and there are separate software products that have come from our graphics business back in New Jersey that will be introduced at NAB. So we do have a significant product that is software-based. We obviously want to do more. But I think it has to be a natural evolution as we continue to grow the various product line offerings and businesses within the company. So that's the way I sort of view it today.
We have a question from Building 40.
Yes. First, I'd like to ask Del, I hope you can help, hope you can join us in June to help celebrate the hard work of all Tech's safety committees. My specific question is, Tech trains a lot of employees for a variety of topics, and in particular in safety, we struggle to get employees into the classroom who need to have safety training. And I wonder if you could describe Tech's commitment in regards to safety training.
I think the entire area, and Tim is more eloquent in talking about this than I am, but the whole area of education and training is something that we have to wrestle with. And as we finish the FY95 plan, we're attempting to put some things in there for it, but not as much as we really need to have going forward. And so we're trying to wrestle with that and determine what we can afford to do over a period of time.
Right. I think in the last year with the headcount reductions and all the extra work and having to take people out before we got processes designed, the thing we missed as a management team is the focus on developing people and training. And Jerry and I know talked to the board about that the other day, and we need to recommit ourselves to that as a management group and put real focus on it this moving into FY95 next year. With a very detailed and broad program and build up to the level over the next 2 or 3 years, like we have in some areas where we have a competitive development offering with some of the other companies we compete with. That's an area we're way behind in today.
Let me add to that, just on safety in particular, Barbara Block came to the policy committee last Friday to go over this very issue, is that people were getting kicked out of conference rooms and all the rest of that because other things were more important. You know, we're in agreement with her that these are important things to do and things we need to do, okay, and that we would re-emphasize that and our commitment to doing that. So that, I think, addresses perhaps the specific as well.
one comment I'd like to make on this whole delivery of training and development, and that is we have to, and we're going to be looking ahead to see if we can't deliver training and development and advancement opportunities through retraining without having everybody go to a classroom. The Network Displays Organization makes a great product, interactive video product that would allow all of us to use the X terminal on our desk to take 30 minutes from each day and learn about what it is we want to learn about. And we're just going to have to sort of break the process and come into the 20th century and deliver training and development in a more contemporary way. And we're planning to do that. Call from Building 50.
Yes. What are we doing to focus our business operations on long-term planning in addition to just short-term fiscal goals?
Any comment, Del?
Well, we finished, I guess what is this? This is March. We finished in January, I guess, December, January, a 3-year annual plan for each of the IBDs and the company that we ended up presenting to the board. And we spend about 6 months a year. Now, this is a fairly new process. Last year was the first time that we actually went through this. But we spend six months on a 3-year annual plan that is pretty all-encompassing as to what we can accomplish. What are our goals out 3 years, and what do we have to accomplish in year 1, 2, and 3 in order to achieve them? And as you know, right now we're in the business planning process, and we will present our FY95 business plan to the board in May. And then we'll turn right around and go back through a 3-year planning process for about 6 months, the latter half of this calendar year. So we're trying to get into a mode that you're really, in some way, doing planning year-round. And it really forces us to look at the opportunities and issues surrounding growth, the businesses we're going to be in, what we can do to enhance all of our values.
Steve from the studio here.
In reference to the Banyan network that Tektronix has recently, within the last couple of years, chose as a PC-based network, there's been talk about expanding to the field offices, providing that standard to those areas as well. Do you see that actually expanding international as well?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
The question is, should it and will it?
Clearly, we intend to roll out the Banyan network around the entire U.S. so that we're on one network and we don't have Novell here and something else. We can only have one thing. We can't have a lot of variables. When you get overseas, that represents a different issue. If Bob Vance was here, I'm sure he could answer it for me technically. I'll make sure that you get an answer as to exactly what our plans are in that. But one way or another, we need to have one approach at a problem from a cost and support and efficiency point of view.
We've got time for one, maybe two more questions. Is there one here in the studio? Yes.
How come Bill Spivey's resignation was not announced internally but was announced in external business publications?
Well, first of all, generally we don't announce resignations internally. I think the answer on the business publication is I think that publication is looking for any way and always to come at me personally. For some reason, I guess we don't get along very well. But in any case, it's a good question to clear the air. Bill Spivey left the company not for reasons, not for the reasons that or insinuations defined in the publication. We had no disagreement on the game plan for Forest Grove or whatever. Bill really wanted to be an operating manager of a large business unit, and ultimately. He would have probably done that in this company, but his ambitions were to do it immediately. And so he chose to do it at AT&T in this case. I will tell you that Bill probably contributed as much in the last year to what we're seeing in this fourth quarter as any of us in the room. He was instrumental in negotiating 2 or 3 major license agreements. a number of things that are flowing through to some of the results in the non-operating area, and John might comment. So there was no problem there. I guess maybe the question is, should we be announcing resignations internally? And we generally don't do that. Last question, and let's take it from the studio here. Yes, Barbara.
There were some contracts in FDI with like the Navy and the Air Force, and basically what would happen is the more units we shipped, the more money that we would lose. And I'm curious, do we make that kind of an agreement up front, or is it that the products get older and they get more expensive? How do you get in that position, and why are we doing it?
We're trying not to be in that position in the future.
John, you want to talk to that?
But they are older contracts that are multi-year contracts, and certainly as we look at the future, we're doing some last-time buys just to cover ourselves on some of these existing contracts. But our intent is not to do that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's as Del said, there's times when you take an order that initially is below what you think you should get in price, but you have plans then to make a business out of it. I mean, a good deal. We're not here encouraging a business of the kind that you just described, believe me. Do we have time for another question? Or are we, yeah, okay, we have a minute or two left. Yes, John.
With the renovation going on within the Beaverton campus, what are the plans with the buildings on Milliken Way with Max tracks coming through?
We're looking at the whole site as an opportunity.
Let me just interrupt you. For those that aren't familiar with what Milliken Way is, it's the ones on the...
It's the ones we're in.
The ones we're in on this side of the tracks, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, we've made it fairly clear that we think we have too much space as a company, and no matter what measure you use, okay, we have too much space, and a lot of it's here in the Beaverton campus. And so what we wanted to be able to do was to focus our efforts on a series of core buildings, and today we've said that those are buildings 19, 39, 50, and 58. In addition to that, we obviously need board build 73, and we have to figure out if we need 78 or not, or a smaller version thereof. But that creates an opportunity then, from a real estate point of view, to do something with the remaining facilities. With the light rail coming through here, it does present an opportunity to the company that allows perhaps parcelization of the land, selling off of the land and buildings in a way which I call monetizing some of these assets. We're not in the real estate business. That's not what we want to be in. We want to take the money that's sitting here and the value that's sitting here in land and buildings and pour it into things that we're good at doing, okay, not letting it sit there in buildings to be maintained over time. So the light rail does provide a nice opportunity for us because it'll probably allow us to parcelize some properties as well as it becomes a very attractive piece of land for somebody looking to relocate their facilities here.
We have time for a short question. Let's do it from the studio here. Linda?
Okay. We seem to be moving towards putting a lot of documentation from hard copy publications to online. And I'm wondering if we're keeping up with other companies. Are we trying to catch up? Are we on a par with them?
Well, I may not be able to answer this completely, but I think we still lag what a lot of companies are doing in that regard. And I know that Bob Vincent is working with each of the independent business divisions and strategic services in a plan of how we handle this in the future. I mean, it would be so much easier to have it within a computer, for example, documentation, and then just print out your need when you're sending it to the Salesforce or a customer base. So I think we have a lot of work. We're making some progress, but we have a lot of work to go on that.
I think, Linda, that in T&M, in the area that now reports to Rick Wills, and Carolyn has done a marvelous job there, and I would say in that organization they're ahead of their contemporaries. In some of the other organizations, we still believe that doing it by hand and writing it off the Xerox machine and shipping it out in cartons is the right way, and we just need to move what's been done at T&M into the minds and hearts and actions of all the rest of us. We are out of time. Good questions. Appreciate, again, the efforts of all of you in the quarter. I just want you to know that John and Carl and I and Tim don't just come here because there's good news. We'll come here from time to time at Dell's invitation and use his forum to let you kind of get at all of us with questions you might have. So have a good weekend. Thanks again for a good quarter. And if the fourth quarter is every bit as good as this, we might twist Dell's arm and ask if we can come back again.
Good.
Thank you.